Kohei declares he's glad to be divorcing Yuyuka, who retorts that the feeling is mutual. The argument escalates, with both making it clear there's no chance for reconciliation. In a moment of shared anger, they both silently wish to never have to deal with the other in another life. He remembers when he first started dating Yuzuka, thinking he was the luckiest man alive. Even on their wedding day, he believed their happiness would be eternal. Back in the present, Kohei celebrates his new freedom, wanting to punch his past self for being so naive. They argue over who is following whom, with Yuyuka telling him to go sleep in an internet cafe. Kohei notes that this crosswalk is where they will part ways for good. He reflects that this is the end of their relationship. As he walks off with a quiet farewell, Yuyuka is overcome with emotion. Yuyuka turns back, asking what he just said. She stands frozen in the path of a speeding car. Kohei screams her name in panic. He lunges forward to push her to safety. Kohei wakes up in a bed to a girl in a school uniform slapping his cheek. His sister Sana tells him he's running late. He recognizes his sister but notes how much younger she looks. He wonders how he got home after being in a traffic accident. He desperately asks about Yuzuka's safety, but Sana thinks he's talking about a game character. Sana worries that Kohei can't differentiate between the real world and games anymore. He feels his own body, noticing how light and different it feels. The sight of his sister in her school uniform in his old room solidifies his growing suspicion. His sister tells him it's the day of his high school entrance ceremony. Kohei is overjoyed, celebrating his time slip and the chance to escape his miserable adult life. He sees Yuyuka and realizes the best part of this new life is that he doesn't have to marry her. He can't deny that he still finds her attractive. Meanwhile, Yuyuka is determined to find a better partner in this life. Kohei resolves to avoid her, but finds it difficult with her sitting right behind him. The teacher begins asking students to introduce themselves. The teacher calls on Kuro's-kun. Kohei gives his introduction, noting his hobby is checking bookstores. After Kohei, the teacher calls on Koikawa-san. Kohei internally notes that she's still putting on her honor student persona. He remembers that she actually has terrible stage fright. Standing before the class, she mistakenly introduces herself using his last name. Her mistake leaves her and her classmates in stunned silence. Classmates point out her mistake, correcting her name to Koikawa. Yuyuka panics and claims she was just thrown off by Kuro's introduction. The other students whisper that she must have gotten nervous, finding it unexpected. Yuyuka can barely contain her laughter as she realizes she must also have memories of her past life. Kohei feels the precariousness of his situation. He hopes she hasn't realized that he, too, retains memories from his past life. He decides to try and live his new life without standing out. His plan is immediately thwarted when Yuyuka finds him in the bookstore. Thinking quickly, Kohei pretends not to recognize her, blaming it on being sleep-deprived. She reintroduces herself and asks about games, making him wonder about her motives. Frustrated, he insults her under the guise of a game recommendation. Kohei thinks that he does want to talk about games, but it would be too suspicious to suddenly change his tune. Yuyuka smiles brightly and agrees with his recommendation, much to his shock. He recalls their bitter arguments, reminding himself not to be fooled by her current pleasantries. She asks if he has any siblings, and he cautiously tells her about his sister, Sana. He grows paranoid, envisioning her master plan to brainwash him in this second life. He considers the possibility that she just wants a friend, since she had none before. Despite his rationalizations, he can't help but feel wary. When she asks to see a photo of Sana, he suspects it's a test to confirm his memories. He feels that the more he tries to avoid her, the more she seems to appear. He decides to cut the conversation short, telling her where she can find his sister if she's that interested. As he leaves, the rain begins to fall. Kohei decides it's time to head home. He steps outside into a heavy downpour, noting the similarity to his past life. He remembers a dangerous event from this day and realizes he's heading right towards it. He finds Yuyuka taking shelter in the park's gazebo. He wonders what she's doing there and why she isn't going home. He remembers that she is terrified of thunder, a fact that held true even during their worst fights. He tells himself to stick to his decision and not get involved. He sees her flinch at the sound of thunder. Despite his best efforts, he can't bring himself to leave her alone. He walks up to the gazebo and she asks what he is doing there. She asks if he's worried about her, but he quickly denies it. He deflects by asking if she has an umbrella. He recalls a happier time when they shared an umbrella. He tells her he gave his umbrella away, thinking about his old tricks. Yuyuka explains that she performed a selfless act, giving her umbrella to children in need. Kohei weighs his options, realizing he can't leave her there to potentially die. He decides to give her his umbrella as a solution. He waves goodbye, intending to walk home in the rain. Yuyuka grabs his arm, telling him to wait. She stops him from leaving, and he asks what she wants now. She proposes that they share the umbrella, leaving him stunned. Kohei sputters, worried that people will get the wrong idea if they see them sharing an umbrella. Yuyuka finds his rapid-fire excuses amusing. She teases him, correctly guessing he's just embarrassed. He notices the rain is getting stronger. He relents and tells her they should hurry up and go home. She grabs his arm to walk with him. After she complains he's walking too fast, he adjusts his pace for her. She genuinely thanks him for his help. He feels flustered, admitting to himself that she's throwing him off his game. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning strikes nearby. Yuyuka screams in terror and grabs onto Kohei's arm. Once the immediate scare is over, he tells her she can let go. He gets flustered by the proximity, while she asks to hold on for a bit longer. Sana suddenly appears, wondering who the girl with her brother is. She immediately asks if Yuyuka is his girlfriend, which they both deny. Kohei clarifies she's a classmate, and the two girls introduce themselves. Sana asks for Koikawa's first name, and she replies that it's Yuzuka. Sana feels like she's heard the name before. She suddenly remembers and exclaims that Yuzuka is her brother's wife. Sana puts the pieces together and teases them about dating, as Kohei tries to get her to stop. Sana says she'll head home so as not to interrupt their date. She shows them her phone, which has a news report about the lightning strike. She tells them both to be careful. As Sana walks away, Kohei and Yuyuka are left alone again. Yuyuka confronts Kohei directly, asking if he also traveled back in time. Kohei knows there's no point in denying it any longer. They immediately start arguing, each blaming the other for being childish and secretive. He accuses her of testing him in the bookstore, while she defends her secrecy. He reiterates that he wants nothing to do with her, and only intervened to prevent a tragedy. She realizes he was trying to save her from the lightning strike. He denies it, but she declares she still hates him. They trade insults, telling each other to never speak to one another again. Yuyuka scoffs and walks off, and Kohei heads in the opposite direction. She privately acknowledges his attempt to save her. She offers a quiet word of thanks as she walks away. A blush spreads across her face as she walks on. He turns, questioning what he just heard. He decides it must have been his imagination. He hardens his resolve, vowing to never get involved with her again. In a fond memory, Kohei Kuros teases a frustrated Yuyuka Koikawa for losing at a video game again. Yuyuka stubbornly defends her choice of character, saying she'll stick with him because he's the cutest, much to Kohei's amusement. Determined, Yuyuka declares she will definitely win the next round against Kohei. Kohei muses that playing the game is much more fun with her. He gets lost in a feeling of nostalgia while looking at the controller. The memory is suddenly shattered by an angry voice demanding to know if he is listening and telling him to break up with Yuzuka. Kohei is jolted awake by a slap from his sister Sana, who warns him he's going to be late. He realizes he overslept, and Sana correctly deduces it was because he stayed up late playing games. Sana teases Kohei about a potential school date with Koikawa-san, which he quickly denies. He recalls playing games until late the previous night. As he walks to school, he marvels at how his young body isn't sluggish at all despite the lack of sleep. Still, he thinks back on the old game and admits to himself that it wasn't very enjoyable. He remembers playing that same game with Yuzuka during their university days. He becomes flustered, realizing that her face has been popping into his head a lot lately. Remembering how they parted ways after an argument, he reaffirms his decision to not get involved with her again. He resolves to make new friends to forget about his past. Overhearing classmates discuss club activities, Kohei considers joining one, something he didn't do in his previous life. The idea of joining the art club suddenly occurs to him. With newfound determination, Kohei decides to join the arts club. He recalls that in his previous life, he only took up drawing after starting university. He realizes that joining the club now would give him a 3-year head start. With this plan, he believes he could even enter a university for the arts. He slides the door open and is shocked to see Yuyuka inside. He quickly closes the door and walks away. Completely bewildered, he wonders why she was in the art club room. Kohei reasons that being in the same club as Yuyuka is not an option. His attention is caught by a flyer for the manga research club. He's impressed by the art on the flyer, thinking it's very good for a high school student. Recognizing the art style, he approaches the clubroom door. A girl with long dark hair looks up as Kohei enters the clubroom. She asks if he's a potential club applicant, and he confirms he is. She explains that all the senior members graduated, leaving her as the only one left. The club president introduces herself as Akabane Chizuru, and Kohei introduces himself. He asks if the drawing on the door was hers, and she confirms it. Kohei compliments her art, saying it's amazing for her young age, a comment that seems to confuse her. She thanks him for the praise, though Kohei feels awkward about his choice of words. As she explains the club's activities, Kohei realizes he messed up by talking to someone as if they were younger than him. Kohei is impressed by Akabane's ambition and skilled artistry, noting that she gives off the feeling of an adult. He calls her a hard worker, but she insists it's simply because she enjoys it. He compliments the detail in her work, and she seems impressed by his observation. Kohei expresses his deep respect for her dedication to her craft. His words make Akabane blush, and she comments on his mature mindset, causing him to panic. Akabane senses they'll get along and asks him to join her in creating manga. Kohei enthusiastically agrees, feeling like this is the perfect start to his second high school life. His moment of joy is shattered when Yuyuka slams the door open. Yuyuka stands in the doorway with a stern expression. Startled, Kohei calls out to Yuyuka, shocked by her sudden appearance. Yuyuka explains she left the arts club because the other members were all guys. Kohei accuses her of using that as an excuse to follow him, but she claims she's also interested in this club. Yuyuka declares that she is joining the club. Akabane looks to Yuyuka for confirmation, who stands her ground. Akabane is overjoyed, celebrating that her club will now have 2 members. She warmly welcomes Yuyuka and eagerly asks about her manga preferences. Yuyuka mentions liking the manga Animal Paradise. Akabane recognizes the series and enthusiastically compliments her taste. The 2 girls become incredibly excited, bonding over their shared love for the manga while Kohei looks on. Yuyuka expresses her happiness at being able to discuss otaku stuff. Akabane agrees, while Kohei feels like a third wheel. As Akabane tries to persuade Yuyuka to join, Kohei attempts to interrupt. Kohei confronts Yuyuka, reminding her of a time she made him stay up all night to finish her doujinshi. She argues back, mentioning the hot spring trip she took him on to make up for it. Yuyuka admits she was just happy to be able to go on a trip with him. Unseen by them, Akabane snaps a photo of their interaction. Akabane explains she was simply gathering material for her manga. She calls their argument a lover's quarrel, which they both instantly deny. When she asks if they're dating, they deny it again in perfect unison. Akabane laughs at their synchronization, comparing them to a married couple. Akabane changes the subject, suggesting they discuss a different manga. Forgetting their argument, Kohei and Yuyuka launch into an excited discussion about the series. The 3 of them laugh together, with Yuyuka telling Kohei not to make her laugh so hard. Seeing her genuine laugh causes Kohei's heart to pound. The shared moment makes them both suddenly self-conscious. They quickly turn away from each other in embarrassment. Akabane watches their interaction with a knowing smirk. They both apologize to Akabane for getting carried away. Akabane's question about a specific plot point makes them realize they've revealed knowledge of the future. Akabane calmly observes that their detailed knowledge of a future event is very telling. Akabane confronts them directly, asking if they've done it, which they vehemently deny. She admits she was joking about that part. However, she points out that she could clearly see they were having a lot of fun talking to each other. Akabane suggests it would be beneficial for them to make up, as sharing the same feelings is a valuable thing. Kohei blushes, embarrassed by her lecturing. He thinks to himself that his relationship with Yuyuka is already over. When Akabane asks if they're joining, they both declare they won't as long as the other is present. Kohei remembers playing a game alone and finding it boring. Kohei reflects on how much fun he used to have gaming with Yuyuka. He remembers a time when she asked him why he hadn't told her about his hobby. He had explained his fear of being judged, but she had reassured him by saying she thought it was amazing. In the memory, Yuzuka tells him that she thinks his gaming skill is amazing. She had then asked him to teach her, expressing a genuine desire to play together. Kohei reflects on how she embraced his hobbies despite not being an otaku herself. Akabane's words about the value of a shared connection echo in his mind. He acknowledges their failure as a married couple. But a new possibility occurs to him, perhaps they could try again as friends. He thinks that maybe as friends, they can still have fun together in the present. He solidifies his new resolve, deciding they can try again but only as friends. Kohei Kuros lies in bed, rolling over as he thinks about his unfortunate circumstances. He reflects that just as his springtime of youth was about to bloom in the manga club with a wonderful senpai, his hated ex-wife Yuzuka showed up to join. Kohei reflects that discussing manga with his senpai is fun, but conversations with his classmates are lacking. His classmates' immature discussion about a character's cup size makes him feel that his tastes don't align with theirs because he's mentally older. Suddenly feeling the desire to read some manga, Kohei gets his backpack and heads for the door. He decides to go to a net cafe to read. He recalls how in his previous life he used these cafes to rest his battered body after slaving away at work. With a smile, he thinks about how he can now read all the manga he desires. However, as he approaches his destination, he comes face to face with Yuzuka. Kohei and Yuzuka stare at each other in surprise. Kohei angrily asks what she is doing there. Yuzuka explains that she wanted to spend her rest day reading manga, and Kohei realizes they had the exact same plan. The attendant asks if the two of them are together, and Kohei quickly clarifies that they are separate. The attendant explains that while they're basically full, a two-person booth is available. As Kohei panics at the thought of a couple's seat, the attendant reassures him that it's fine for non-couples to use it. Yuzuka seems hesitant, not wanting to give up the booth to another couple, but also not wanting to trouble the attendant further. Sitting side by side in the booth surrounded by stacks of manga, Kohei wonders how he ended up in this situation. He thinks to himself that his ex-wife is far too close for comfort. Yuzuka picks up a volume of Tentama, and when Kohei asks if she wanted to read something else, she dismisses his concern, saying she likes this series. He looks at the manga she chose. Kohei recalls that they used to have lively discussions about this very manga in the past. He remembers his senpai's advice about the value of sharing the same feelings and viewpoints with someone. Yuzuka seems lost in thought, a hint of a blush on her cheeks. Kohei comments that the scene he's reading is quite nostalgic. Yuzuka correctly guesses he's referring to the part where the protagonist's old ally Kajiro reappears after a dispute. They both fondly remember how the two characters, who should have hated each other, teamed up and fought in unison because they still recalled each other's habits. They laugh together, with Kohei observing that the characters totally like each other despite their bickering, and Yuzuka adding that they're best friends. Kohei recalls reading a lot of the series at her place, prompting Yuzuka to proudly state that she has all the volumes. Yuzuka continues to chuckle, and Kohei asks her what she finds so funny. Yuzuka recalls that Kohei acted super weird when he came over to her place, making him defensively state that it was his first time in a girl's room. She admits she was also very nervous, as it was her first time inviting a guy over, and he was her boyfriend at the time. They both fall silent after the personal exchange. Kohei gets distracted by loud noises from another booth, wondering aloud if it's a lover's quarrel. Realizing they got too loud, Kohei puts a finger to his lips to shush Yuzuka. He thinks to himself that an internet cafe isn't a good place for conversation. He feels a sense of unease, as if their conversation was left unfinished. Trying to return to his reading, Kohei finds he can't concentrate. The awkward silence is punctuated by suggestive sounds from the next booth. Kohei becomes extremely flustered as he processes what he's hearing. A racy scene in his manga only adds to his discomfort. He glances over and confirms that Yuzuka has also heard the noises and is equally embarrassed. The sounds and her expression trigger a memory for Kohei of the first time they were together, where she had the exact same look on her face. The flashback is so intense that Kohei slaps himself across the face to break the thought. Startled by his sudden action, Yuzuka asks if he's okay. To break the suffocating tension, Kohei blurts out an invitation for her to come over. Yuzuka is taken aback by his sudden offer. Kohei immediately panics, wondering why he just invited his ex-wife to his house and reassuring himself it was just to get out of there. He notices Yuzuka seems to be pulling away and quickly tries to assure her that his intentions aren't inappropriate. He explains that it's just hard to stay in the cafe with the other couple being so loud. He suggests they can talk all they want at his house. As a further incentive, he adds that he has a gaming console. He tells her his parents and sister won't be home, but then adds that it's okay if she doesn't want to come. Kohei reflects that Yuyuka must have wanted to continue their conversation, which is why she agreed to come to his house so readily. Upon entering his room, they spot an old fighting game, Strange Fighter 4, lying on the floor, which Kohei recognizes as a blast from the past. Kohei invites Yuyuka to play the 10-year-old game, and she agrees. They quickly get into the game, with Kohei gleefully taunting Yuyuka for using an unfair super move. He realizes how much more enjoyable it is to play with someone, a stark contrast to how boring it was when he played by himself the day before. After another loss, Yuyuka complains in frustration, while Kohei teases her for not picking a top-tier character. Kohei watches as Yuyuka adamantly refuses to switch characters, giving him a strong sense of déjà vu. Fanning herself, Yuyuka declares her loyalty to the character Nagged because he's the cutest. Feeling warm, Yuyuka decides to turn on the air conditioner while Kohei suggests she could just take off her top. She immediately calls him a pervert for the suggestion, though he insists it wasn't meant that way. The air conditioner beeps as it turns on. The blast of cold air from the air conditioner makes Kohei shiver. Yuyuka remarks that he's sensitive to cold while she's sensitive to heat and decides to turn the air conditioner off. Kohei protests, worried his sweat will ruin the controller. He internally reflects on how living together inevitably brings up such minor conflicts, even between people who enjoy the same things. Yuyuka removes her cardigan and offers it to Kohei, telling him to put it on. Kohei is surprised by her gesture. She explains that it would be problematic if he caught a cold. She admits it was her fault, since she turned on the AC after he told her to take her top off. Kohei accepts the cardigan and thanks her. As he puts it on, he's enveloped in a pleasant, fluffy scent. He blushes, realizing the scent is Yuyuka's. Flustered, Kohei wonders if Yuyuka always smells this good. He realizes this situation is dangerous for his composure. The familiar scent triggers memories of their first time together. Their moment is shattered when a girl bursts into the room, cheerfully announcing she's home. Both Kohei and Yuyuka are startled by her sudden appearance. The girl, Sana, immediately asks if they are on a date, while Yuyuka realizes how late it has gotten. Sana points out that Kohei is wearing a girl's cardigan, jolting him. She immediately jumps to conclusions, squealing about how lewd the situation is, and runs off yelling for their mother as Kohei denies everything. Sana bursts in on her parents, excitedly announcing that her brother brought his girlfriend home. Sana then urges Kohei to introduce Yuyuka to them, leaving him in a difficult situation. The family home is shown as night falls. The misunderstanding leads to Yuyuka joining the Kuro's family for a full dinner spread. The whole family, including Yuyuka, sits down to eat together. Kohei finds himself caught in the middle of the lively family gathering, looking slightly overwhelmed. After dinner, Kohei walks Yuyuka out, urged by his sister to see her off properly. As he walks, he feels utterly frustrated. Now, his parents are also under the mistaken impression that Yuyuka is his girlfriend. Despite the chaotic turn of events, Kohei reflects that he genuinely had fun today. As they walk, he turns to Yuyuka and thanks her. Yuyuka smiles warmly and wishes him a good night. They part ways under the starry sky. A girl apologizes for calling someone out so suddenly. Kuros replies that it is not a problem. He notes the unusually serious expression on her face. The girl nervously asks him for a favor. She asks him to become her manga editor. She explains that she has been observing him since he joined the club and has noticed his gift for foreseeing developments. She calls it an extremely useful skill and asks him to lend her that power. Kuros is taken aback by the sudden suggestion. He suddenly remembers he left someone waiting and dashes off, apologizing to his senpai and promising to talk later. He arrives outside a cafe named Must. As he enters, wondering if Yuyuka is mad, he is greeted by the staff. He sees Yuyuka Kaikawa sitting at a table with another boy. Yuyuka calls out to Kuhei as he arrives at the table. The boy she was with waves goodbye, telling Yuyuka to think about his offer. Yuyuka scolds Kuhei for being late and he apologizes. When asked who the boy was, the answer is that it was Yamada-kun from the football club. Kuros remembers Yamada as a popular guy from the football club. As Yuyuka explains, he asked her to be their manager. Yuyuka chuckles, commenting that Yamada has good taste for approaching her. She then asks Kuros if this means they will no longer be hanging out like this. Yuyuka asks why he is bothered if she is going to be the manager. Kuros looks upset and Yuyuka points it out, reminding him she did not say she would do it. She smirks, teasingly asking if he is upset because he is jealous of Yamada-kun, which he quickly denies. They both fall back in their seats as he loudly insists he is not the clingy, possessive type, unlike her. Yuyuka stomps away, calling him the worst for his attitude on top of being late. Kuros arrives home looking gloomy. His sister Sana greets him, asks why he looks depressed, and tells him to dry his hair. Sana tries to cheer up a gloomy Kuros by offering him something. She presents 2 tickets to the Shimano Zoo, which is having a collaboration with Annapurna. She suggests he use them to go on a date with Yuzuka-chan. He recognizes that Annapurna is the anime that Yuzuka likes. Lying on his bed, Kuros reflects that his spat with Yuzuka has left a bad taste in his mouth. He thinks that in his past life, he was never troubled by things like this. He recalls that they were far from fighting when they were dating. A flashback begins, showing a younger Kuros telling someone he is leaving the photo for the report in their hands. A blonde girl waves to Kuros as he walks by. Yuzuka is waiting for him, looking at her phone. He apologizes for keeping her waiting, and she asks if something is wrong. With an insecure expression, Yuzuka asks Kuhei if he prefers idol types like the girl from earlier. Internally, Kuros is overwhelmed by how cute he finds her jealousy. He thinks about how she got jealous just because he talked to a girl from his seminar, wondering how in love with him she must be. Yuzuka lets out a small sound. He tells Yuzuka not to worry, reassuring her that she is the cutest and only girl for him. She looks at him, blushing slightly. She quietly responds that it is the same for her. She embraces him tightly, thinking that Kuhei is the only person she loves. His thoughts shift to what happened after they got married. The number of fights increased, and they stopped trying to make up for them. The dissatisfaction between them continued to build over time. He remembers how their fighting eventually led to their divorce. Back in the present, he acknowledges he knows all this, but finds the thought of apologizing vexing. He admits to himself that he was in the wrong today. He decides that as embarrassing as it is, he should invite her out. Just as he resolves to do so, his phone starts vibrating with a call. He answers the phone, surprised that it is Yuzuka. Yuzuka is also surprised to hear Kuhei on the line. He tells her he was just about to call her, musing on their strange timing. She asks what he wanted, and he says he got tickets to the zoo and was wondering if she would like to go. Yuzuka is silent for a moment. She asks why he is asking her to go. Kuros gets flustered, wishing she would just take the hint. He stammers that he just happened to get 2 tickets. His sister Sana smirks as she eavesdrops on his phone call. He yells at Sana for eavesdropping. Yuzuka hears a crash and a bang on the other end of the line and asks what is happening. His sister calls out to him as Ne-chan. Sana tells her brother that he will never get his true feelings across. She insists that he has to say it out properly. Sana is soaked from the towel her brother threw at her. Kuros tells Sana to get out and dry her hair so she does not catch a cold. Yuzuka asks what is going on, and he apologizes for the interruption. He stammers an answer into the phone. He explains that he asked her because she likes animals. He finishes by saying he thought they would have a fun time together. He happily agrees to go with her. Yuzuka says that is great and brings up the topic of what happened earlier, likely referring to Yamada-kun. Kuros is confused when Yuzuka says Yamada has no interest in girls. She recounts a memory from their past life at an alumni reunion where she learned Yamada had become a girl. She confirms that there is nothing between her and Yamada-kun and that she will not be their manager. Kuros can only manage a stunned response. He realizes he has not apologized and tells her he is sorry for taking his anger out on her. Yuzuka smiles and tells him not to worry about it, as it is all water under the bridge now. That weekend, an excited Yuzuka greets Kuhei for their zoo date. Kuhei comments that she seems very fired up, and she confirms she is. Yuzuka explains she is excited because of the Annapurna collaboration event. They stand together watching the tigers in their enclosure. They walk through an aquarium tunnel, enjoying the sights. They visit the petting zoo and hold some rabbits. While they are by the giraffe enclosure, one of them leans down and playfully nibbles on Yuzuka's hair. Yuzuka stretches and exclaims that she had a blast. Kuros smiles to himself, glad that she had fun. She turns to him and suggests they should hang out and do things like this again. Kuros reflects that he and Yuzuka are no longer bound together. He resolves that this time around, he wants to remain on good terms with her forever. The scene shifts to the following week at school. Their senpai announces a training camp at her grandparents' hot spring inn, much to the excitement of Yuzuka and another classmate. The other students express their admiration for the senpai's family, while Kuros thinks about the trip. Kuros fantasizes about his senpai and Yuzuka in yukatas. The two girls accuse him of having dirty thoughts about them, which he nervously denies. They tease him about being a couple, which he loudly refutes. Kohei declares